We have a long tradition here at Pensacola City Council making our forum here where we conduct business also open to the public, and beginning this past January we opened up 2 public forums, one at each end of the meeting. And I just want to go over a few of the rules. You got 4 minutes, but you must be civil. I'm not going to stand for a repeat of our Monday committee meeting and have people referred to as Hitler and Himmler. And if you do, you're out of order. And so this is everybody's meeting, not just any 1 or 2 or 3 people's meeting. So with that said, the first open forum will go until 6 p.m. And at that time, we will start conducting the business of the city. If I've not called on you and you have a card to speak to open forum, there'll be another opportunity at the close of business. So thank you. Reverend Nathan Monk.
Members of the council, I too do not want to see a repeat of what happened at the Monday meeting. I thought it was embarrassing what happened at the Monday meeting in a lot of ways. I've been coming and speaking at City Council for 5 years. And in those 5 years, I have never seen someone removed from a City Council meeting. And at least 3 people were removed at that meeting. And what was offensive about their speech was that they weren't connecting the dots that you wanted them to. Well, you don't have the right to determine what type of speech people are going to have when they are addressing their government for a redress of grievances. If someone wants to connect the dots between the poverty that we have and the amount that a loan is being taken out for, they have the right to connect those dots and question their government about that. As Americans, we have the right to redress our government without fear of being arrested. Oftentimes when people come to address their government, they're passionate about the things that they have to say. It embarrassed me on Monday. I have had the opportunity to stand before many administrations of this council, and I have always enjoyed it. I've even enjoyed the banter and the times that we've gotten into arguments, and I've had the opportunity to come forward to someone and say, sorry that I said that thing, that probably wasn't the smartest thing that I said, or I could have said that a little bit differently, and foot and mouth and all that kind of stuff. But to throw someone out, that's a shame. That's embarrassing. This council does not have the right to limit people's speech, to determine what type of speech is appropriate, or to determine what types of dots should and should not be connected. This council should be more embarrassed by the fact that people were able to connect dots to Hitler than that someone pointed it out. Whether or not they're connecting dots from Hitler to George Wallace to Barney, if they're connecting those dots, you should be asking, well, what are we doing that's allowing people to connect those dots? It was a sick and gross abuse of power. And what is
your time is up. Sit down. Thank you.
No, I have 1 minute and 12 seconds left.
I'm ruling you out of order.
Well, I am absolutely within order. I am with order. You are out of order. You made an oath to protect the Constitution. I'm not leaving the podium. I have 56 seconds left. I'm not leaving this podium. I have a constitutional right to be here. I have 49 seconds left. I'm sorry. I'm not the one that's doing this. I'm not doing it. I am an American citizen. I'm an American citizen.
I'm leaving.
I'm sorry, Chip. I'm sorry.
I am leaving this chamber as you are in violation of the people's First Amendment right. I will be outside if you want to address your grievances to your government.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lowry, I know
Yes.
you've got a little time left, but we're at 6 o'clock.
Okay, can I
So
say one last thing and I'm
just-
done?
15
Because actually I have to
seconds.
leave. The last thing I'll say is this. Councilwoman Sherry Myers is one of the biggest trans advocates. I've known her for years. She's huge for the ADA. In the opinion of these transit workers, some comments were made. I'm going to tell you something. She's a legislator of the year in this community in the perspective of workers. We think she is the best.
Okay. Thank you.
The first one is the discussion that has not been lost upon the office of the mayor in regards to whether or not the mayor should be present at these particular meetings. And this is something that, is frankly, to me, being an outsider coming in, I was kind of shocked by. And there were a couple reasons for that. Probably the first one is that, in looking at the history of this particular issue, it apparently was solved, at least for all appearances, it should have been solved last November when the then city attorney had made an opinion, Mr. Wells, who said that certainly the mayor has the right to be at these meetings, but it's certainly not required under his view of the charter. And probably the biggest reason for that is that unlike the old form of government, where the mayor not only was the chair of the meetings, but also had a vote. And because of that, and in looking at the charter language itself, his opinion is that although the mayor certainly should be here, if there is something important that he thinks he needs to address personally, much as when he delivers his yearly budgets, or if there are any other issues of that magnitude, then he will be here. But he is represented by the office of the mayor, and that, frankly, at this point is in my persona. But in looking at it, that opinion was also ratified by the current city attorney. And so the issue is whether or not the mayor should be here. The mayor in the office of the mayor is present, and part of what I do is help to convey what his issues are on a meeting by meeting basis. The other issue is a little more troubling, and frankly, part of everything that we've been discussing in the last several months since I've been here, the real contentious issues, have revolved around the switch in our form of government. I've had the pleasure of going through a similar switch in government before, and so I can certainly understand that it's a long process and there are pinch points that need to be addressed over time. But there really is a correct form for doing that, and there's a difference between a political question, which we can disagree on, and then trying to bump such discussions into a realm that they really aren't appropriate. And earlier this week, former City Councilwoman Diane Mack filed a complaint with the state's attorney's office alleging criminal conduct on the behalf of the mayor. In fact, she alleged that because the mayor had paid city employees, had authorized the payment of city employees $750, by the way, which is the only compensation increase they've had since 2007, that somehow that action was not just politically something that she didn't agree with, but that it was actually criminal. Well, I'm happy to report that today the state's attorney delivered his verdict on her accusations. And I'm going to quote here a little bit, if you don't mind, Mr. President, and that's simply because I think this is incredibly important. The state's attorney's office stated that the charter for the city of Pensacola provides that the mayor has the power to exercise the executive powers of the city and to supervise all departments, including but not limited to the power to appoint, discipline, and remove all officers and employees. And the state's attorney goes on to say that much like Ms. Mack had alleged in her complaint that this appears to be in conflict with a certain position, with a certain ordinance, and that specifically is Section 9, TAC 3, TAC 24. The state's attorney in his analysis determined that in language that should bring it into the debate, the state's attorney opined that the city, and I quote, "The city charter provides that if a conflict exists between the provisions of the charter and the code of ordinances, the charter provisions control." Now, this is actually in line with two other legal opinions that the mayor has relied upon in the past, both from an independent attorney, and that is Michael Matamore of the law firm of Allen, Norton, and Blue, and also is the opinion of the Pensacola City attorney. So now we have three different attorneys looking at this same issue. And I guess just as looking at this as frankly being the outsider looking in, and I've only been here approximately 5-6 months at this point. It's really unfortunate that the political disagreements and the political discussions that we will have, get forced into venues that they simply don't have a place, and to somehow suggest that someone who is trying in a good faith effort, being the mayor, trying to recognize the hardworking employees of this city, that somehow that action is criminal, that really is a little bit beyond the pale. And that is what the state's attorney has essentially said. This is not a criminal issue, and there are no issues that he has with it. And with that, Mr. Chair, I am done with the mayor's report.
Thank you, sir. Again, I'm breaking two of the things I'm trying not to do during meetings, and it won't hurt my feelings if I don't get a motion made on this. I don't want to make the motion from the chair, but I did want to talk about the camping ordinance that we sent back to staff last week with the expectation that it was either going to go away or that staff was going to make improvements to it. I'm not sure we gave much guidance on that particular issue. But in order for us to be able to discuss it, I need a motion on the floor, because I would really like to hear from Mr. Reynolds and perhaps from the city attorney as well, but particularly from Mr. Reynolds on the history of this ordinance, when it started, where it started, and perhaps why it started. And so.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I believe as a point of order that was tabled, that the council member that tabled it has to bring it back. Is that correct?
Supermajority?
I believe you're right. I believe you're right on, well.
It doesn't take
Yeah.
a supermajority, but the
No, it doesn't.
member that tables it
Yes.
has the right to bring that back, because if they tabled it, and only them.
Do you recall who did that?
And just a buddy, and and I'll defer to my friend, the city clerk. I think it does take a supermajority to take it off the table, because it was tabled at the committee of the whole, and we're now at the full council meeting. So it gets a little complicated.
Well, and it does, and I do understand the supermajority, and that's the way our committee system and council used to work. But if you look at the latest copy of the Rules and Procedures, which supersedes anything that Robert Rules does, if it took a majority vote the first time, it only takes a majority vote to pull it out, and that's also on a reconsideration. I know it was very clear that we had to. Robert's rules aren't going to help you on this particular issue, because council rules and procedures supersede that. But thank you, Mr. Reynolds. But I do believe that we don't address who can pull it off the table in our rules and procedures, so Robert's rules would apply, and I do believe Madam President is correct on that. So who moved to table it?
That was Councilmember Spencer.
Okay. And I guess Mr. Spencer is unwilling to bring it up. That's okay. So, perhaps in open forum, I can ask Mr. Reynolds to give us an explanation of history of that. Okay. All right, thank you.
Get it.
Okay. Dr. Pratt.
I wanted to speak tangentially on this, not about the ordinance itself, but I think it would be a valuable discussion in the future to talk about. I was perplexed in the previous meeting, the decision to table as opposed to refer to staff, but then I realized, well, we have no staff to whom we can refer an item, and whether there's a way we can have a tacit understanding with the mayor's office that we can refer things to staff. Because in some cases, it's not that we want it to sit there in committee, but we really expect that there would be work and discussion outside of the committee situation. And so it might be a valuable discussion in the future.
Okay. Brings us to open forum, and I have several cards. Open forum?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I apologize. I was reading something real quick when I did hear those comments about the camping issue, and I would like to hear a short history. I believe it was misrepresented Monday that this issue has come up recently because of the Occupy movement here. And from what I understand, doing a little research, that I had heard that this issue had actually been looked at for many months ago, and actually Mr. Wells, I believe, had started looking at this issue maybe as long as a year ago. And if I could get an explanation if that is accurate or not from Mr. Reynolds and Mr. Messer, Mr. President, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney, and well, start with City Administrator, and then I expect to hear from the City Attorney after that.
Thank you very much, Council President. This actually had been in effect for at least over a year. The former City Attorney, Rusty Wells, was actually the individual that had started drafting the ordinance originally, and for whatever reason it had never been implemented. I found the ordinance as I was doing research on the camping issue myself. During that point, both I and code enforcement worked on it. We also did some legal research in my office in regards to the statute that it was based upon in Orlando, recognized that there were some concerns of the court that were articulated, but you know, the statute was fine, but they did have some concerns at the court level, and so we had made the determination to go ahead and tweak that original statute to take those concerns of the court into effect, and then that was the statute that ultimately was brought here before council.
So, excuse me, so this issue actually had been, this discussion and had started quite a while back.
It was certainly before my time, and certainly before Mr. Messer's time.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I think that was misrepresented, that this just started up just here in the last few weeks, and I just wanted to clear that up for everyone here in the audience and also folks out watching. Thank you.
And for the City Attorney, I was looking for the explanation on the reviewing thing. I think that was what was reported at the committee meeting was not entirely accurate.
Yes, sir, I apologize. I defer to Mr. Reynolds. Apparently I saw it. I honestly didn't remember. I think I probably remember now. So whatever Mr. Reynolds says, I agree with.
Well, I even saw an email exchange that clearly went back to last month, and so the only thing I can think of is you didn't see any problem with it, and it just.
Well, lest I be called senile, I think what happened is it was represented to me that the previous city attorney looked at it, and I figured with 28 years experience he could probably draft an ordinance. So, I passed it on without doing anything at all on it. So,
okay.
Whatever happened, whatever the documents say, I agree with.
Is that good enough, Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, and just one other quick comment. If we're done with that, that's fine. But the other thing that I wanted to just talk about, because I know that we've probably got some cards from folks that want to come to the podium and speak to us tonight. But I would ask that they come and treat us with respect, as we will treat them with respect. I do not appreciate being called names, and I don't appreciate any of my peers being called names. Monday that happened, and I will not tolerate that. If it happens today, I will not listen. I will get up and leave. So if you cannot treat me with respect, I will not hear you out. So I would encourage all that comes to the podium tonight to please show us respect, and we'll show you respect in return, and that you don't help your cause when you come and name call us. So I would appreciate that for myself and my peers. I think that's the right thing to do, and I think that will advance this discussion further. Name calling gets you nowhere, and to be called anti-American, anti-homeless, non-Christian is offensive to me, and I won't tolerate it. So I might have other comments as we proceed, but I just wanted to say that too. Thank you very much.
I want to address the First Amendment. I have been very concerned and obviously tonight upset over what I perceive is a violation of the First Amendment right of citizens to redress their grievances to their government. Yes, we do have the right to set down some guidelines and rules, but if you look at the Supreme Court cases, the First Amendment right is the cornerstone of our democracy. Unfortunately, the First Amendment also protects speech that many of us find offensive. And you can see it on television every day, all day long. So in the context, however, of political speech, that is a highly, highly protected right. And just because you don't like to hear someone characterize some action of the city council as sick, that I believe is protected speech. I see Mr. Cobb sitting out there in the audience, and I remember one night he came down here and told us we were a bunch of crooks. And so that he's entitled to that opinion, but we are also entitled to defend ourselves. But it does disturb me when I see 3 police officers standing over a citizen who is here to express his views on actions of the city council. The person was not disruptive. His characterization may not have been flattering toward us, and I believe that it was a violation of his First Amendment rights. Now, calling police officers on citizens, and I've seen that now at the Committee of the Whole and here, has a chilling effect on a person's right to redress their grievances to the government. And I really think, and I would appreciate our city attorney giving us more guidance on this issue, because I think that we are crossing the line here. And, you know, the First Amendment has been fought over since the 1600s. Our Bill of Rights did not start here in the United States. It started in England. People have died protecting this right. Our young men and women in uniform have given up their lives, have suffered disabilities and illnesses and all types of hardship protecting this right. And to me, this is the most important right we as citizens have. And that's why I walked out. I came back because I have a duty to my constituents to be here. As far as the police coming and bringing me back in or arresting me, I've been arrested before. I've been in the Escambia County Jail many times representing inmates, so I'm very familiar with the jail. And so I didn't come back in out of fear of being arrested. I came back in because it's my duty to be here. But I did want to exercise my right to protest the manner in which Father Monk was being treated.
That's a perfectly good example of how you can disagree and still be respectful, and I want to thank you for that.
And
So,
Sam and I are still friends.
we're still friends. Thank you. Reverend Nathan Monk. Welcome back, sir.
I'm going to try this again. You know, first time I met Mike Wiggins, I was in the middle of suing him. And we had a great conversation. I mean, I had a conversation with Councilwoman Pratt the other day where we substantially disagreed on a number of different issues about the camping ordinance. Had a great conversation. I mean, we've disagreed, Councilman Wu, on the camping issue on a couple of different points. I know that Brian Spencer, I accidentally lumped him in a demographic of people who thought a certain way at a council meeting one time and had to apologize to him about that. I know you and I got into it one time and disagreed over the issue with Rusty Wells. I don't know if you remember it because you get to talk to a whole heck of a lot more people than just me. But, you know, I was part of a group that accidentally offended Councilman Townsend. Councilman Geralds and I disagree on the issue of the kids not being out after 11. Councilman Myers and I don't disagree too much, but every now and again she says something that gets under my skin too.
And you know, Reverend, there's very little you and I have disagreed on over the years.
Well, I've probably been the most mean to Councilwoman DeWeese. You know, I mean, we have gone and public records request each other's public records requests, but I still, in spite of all that, heavily respect a lot of the issues that she stands for and votes on. I haven't sued you yet, but you know we're getting there. It's going to happen, but we're going to shake hands and walk away at it. I probably agree the most with Chip Simmons. He agrees that he doesn't want to arrest me and I don't want to be arrested, and so we can get along on that issue, you know. But I am not happy and will remain unhappy about what happened tonight. I will remain unhappy about what happened on Monday. And I'm not going to let this issue die down. I, tonight, was not comparing this government to any other government or any other villainous character. I was defending the right of other people to do so. And if other people do not have the right to, when they see red flags go up in their government that remind us of negative things that have happened in history, if they cannot draw those comparisons and bring that to the attention of their government. I mean, Hitler, who's been the big, like, you know, just catchphrase and tag word. People voted for him. We should remember that. He campaigned, and people went and voted for that guy. That's a problem. And so if we can't bring up these issues and draw comparisons when we see negative things happen based on history, then we are doomed to repeat it. And what does happen when we are in negative systems of government is that once we start drawing those comparisons and people start connecting the dots, they limit that speech. And that is a problem. So I will continue to stay on top of this issue because I believe people have a right to say what they want to say, especially when it's addressing their government. And if you're going to haul me off in handcuffs, I can't wait to have you name a street after me.
Right. Thank you, Reverend Monk. Ms. Dubuisson.
Good evening, Council. That's a tough act to follow, particularly with my gray matter as old as it is. I've got a tablet full of notes that I made this evening, but I'm rising to speak in memory of my father, who is the one who first taught me about government. when I was 8 years old when he had me dial the governor of the state and introduce myself to him over the phone because he said a person should always be able to speak to their government. And believe it or not, the governor of Louisiana received the call from me, said, "I'm glad to hear from you, Miss Hebert," which was my maiden name at that point. And the next time he met me, I was 15 years old, and he was a retired governor, and he remembered it. But it made an impression upon me because my father taught me that a government can only govern well if it listens to its citizens. He also taught me that absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so we have established checks and balances in all good government formats, and we should preserve those balances. He also taught me to leave every place better than you find it. And I try to do that in every moment, whether it's picking up the plastic cups that other citizens leave in your chambers when you have your committee of the whole, or if it's picking up the branches that the squirrels have dropped on the sidewalk that might trip one of Miss Meyer's individuals who's having trouble going down the sidewalk, or whether it's redoing a rental house when I've had to rent because I was not in a position to own a home. I have always tried to make every space I'm in better by being a part of it. The final thing that I would like for you to know that my father taught me was that you may have the right to do something, but it is not always right to do it. And for that reason, I'm asking you all to please look very carefully at all the actions which individually and collectively are being done in the name of the city of Pensacola in this moment. And rather than arguing constantly about who has the right, who has the ultimate legal, ethical, prosecutable ability to do something, let's look at what can we do to make this place better by choosing to do what is right in every moment to the best of our ability and by being the checks and balances for each other. Mr. Hall, you and I have agreed on some things. We have disagreed on some. I have agreed with Ms. Myers on some and disagreed on some. I have agreed with Mr. Weiss on some and disagreed. I can go down the line continually. But I know that I respect your right to share the information and the experiences that you bring to your positions, and hopefully that you hear and appreciate and respect my opinions when I share them for you. I'm not asking that you give them any more weight than any other citizen, and I'll say that again. Don't give my opinion the weight over any other citizen. For every citizen, no matter what their experience, no matter what their expertise, no matter what their wealth, their assets, is just as important to this community as any of us. Tonight, I would ask you the respect that you keep from the pulpit, and I'm going to call it a pulpit because that's the effect that we're having in this moment. You keep saying, give us respect. I'm asking you to do the same for the citizens. I hope the mayor is listening, as his office has suggested he is, because Mr. Hayward knows that I respect him greatly. He and I have agreed on many things, and we've disagreed on many things. I grab him when I can, and like an old grandmother, tell him where he's messing up, in my opinion, and where he's doing right, in my opinion. And he and I may agree on some things, and we may disagree on some things, but I believe we both have respect for each other. And it's because of the process of dialoguing that I continue to strive to establish. And I would like to ask this council, rather than having brief conversations and lectures to each other, let's try to dialogue more openly as a community, because that's where real communication happens, when there's an open flow back and forth. Thank you for the time.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hassan. Mr. Michael Kimbrell. Welcome, sir.
Good evening. Michael Kimbrell, 1724 East Brainerd. Let me start by saying that what an honor and privilege it must be for this council to have been graced by the presence of so many of Time Magazine's People of the Year for the past couple of months. I will say that I found it very interesting that members of this council were offended by having their Christianity called into question. I want to remind all of them that the people who called it into question were local religious leaders. They were pastors of local churches. So instead of being offended, I think it would be better served if everyone reflected upon the teachings of your religion, because I'm sure that you will find that your religion, whatever it may be, I personally don't consider myself a Christian. But whatever your religion may be, the adoption of our county's panhandling ordinance, even though I know it was very popular, it not only affects the poor in our community, but it affects nonprofits, firefighters, the newspaper hawkers, and when it was adopted, not a single member of this council questioned it. And y'all had the power to question it, y'all had the power to overturn it, and not a single one of you even questioned. Not a single question. Not only then, you tabled that camping ordinance to be retweaked. I'm sorry, but there is no way you can rework that ordinance to where it will not affect the poor in this community. And it is cold out, and you can take away the blankets, and the people are still going to shiver. You know, you take away newspapers, they're still going to, shiver. It's cold. They need these things. Some of them are out there because they choose to be out there. They don't want anything to do with this society. And with what I've been seeing in our government, local and federal, these past few months, I'm starting to wonder if I want to have anything to do with this society as well. The next thing I want to address is y'all have stated numerous times that y'all wanted the people of Occupy Pensacola to address local issues. And I keep hearing y'all say that, and I personally have heard many things be addressed that are local issues, ranging from our water quality, the homeless issues, our many Superfund sites, telephone poles leaching chemicals into the soil, pharmaceuticals in the soil, and the obesity rate, just to name a few of the things. I've also heard them talk about building a better community in this city, but instead, y'all keep asking, what are y'all's local issues? So I am questioning your hearing. But instead of allowing these people to address their grievances and get together in public discourse, which is our right and duties of all Americans, this city has forced our local police officers to crack down on these people. I personally support our local law enforcement. My uncle just retired a few months ago. Mr. Simmons knows him. I've talked with Mr. Simmons and introduced myself to him. And so I'm sure that puts our local police force in a very precarious situation, knowing that they have friends of theirs whose relatives are out there that they're having to harass. None of these people have been violent in any way. It was a peaceful protest. There have been some people that have caused problems, but the problems that they've had down there are not problems with Occupy, they're problems with this society. And these people were addressing those problems and how to solve those problems.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Sansing.
Gary Sansing, citizen of the county. I'm not going to give my address because I'll be losing time. Thank you, Miss Myers. You hit it right on the head. One thing that bothers me worse than anything when people threaten that First Amendment, that just gets me going. I'll take a lot of abuses, but don't take that right away. I agree with all of them, but I don't like to see people burning flags. That'll kill. I mean, that First Amendment, I have had a concern with this city since the get-go of my appealing, even first appearing here. All the subcommittees and people that tried to limit your vote, they try and keep you quiet. I hope, I doubt it, the ACLU, but we will reach out to something like League of Women Voters. You all remember Leroy Boyd and Byron Kiesler. Why do we have to go to court to get civil rights, the basic First Amendment? Another thing, you know, our Homeland Security advisor, I can't pronounce her last name, but you might know her. You know, about 2.5 weeks ago, she held a conference with, I think it was in excess of 30 mayors from across the country, how to deal with us so-called homeless, Occupy, outer line citizens. telling the mayors, we can provide you shields, rubber bullets, tear gas, whatever you need, unlimited, we have it. And we do have a new chief in town. He's a reasonable, very good man. And we do have a new sheriff. I think these are reasonable people that ain't going to come out in the middle of the night like they do in Oakland and New York and destroy private property. We are the terrorists, according to Homeland Security. That's what they're leading us to. Maybe we go there, but I don't want to. I try to treat you all with respect. And sometimes I've gotten less from you guys, not including the ladies, of course. And that makes me very angry. And if you get in my face too much, I can be pushed to the limit. Now, dealing with the new Time magazine issue of the year, it's wonderful. You know, I stayed up and watched the reporter and the editor talk about this. This is an issue. It's like I have tried to educate you people of why Occupation Wall Street. I've reached out to a lot of government people and the county, but I haven't reached out yet to you people. I will inform you how our government has taken the dreams from your children and your grandchildren away. Can you believe it? It's unbelievable. I was speaking with two young people this afternoon, high school and college. I mean, they gave me the amount that they're very glad I encouraged them to take a class on economics. They ain't in the IB program, but they should be. But they're too involved. We are leaving these people with wounded vets, indebtedness, and corrupt government. It's the way it looks. I mean, I think it's MF Global, Kozai, another Goldman Sachs senator and governor who happens to disappear. He can't account for $200 million. And when you see the articles I will present you with, and buy a new Time magazine, and welcome home.
Amanda Vanderwall. I was wondering if like the lawyers and the bankers that come here, if I was wearing a suit, would everything be more important, or would you listen anymore? I wanted to thank Dr. Pratt for standing up, and also the banks have no problem charging $35,000 and another
You've got to stay on topic here.
and another $3,500
you're out of
when they
order.
already get 2.09% of the $5 million they're asking
Please take your
for.
seat. Chief, would you remove her, please? Thank you.
Seriously? Okay. Thought this was America. Guess I'm wrong. Why do I have to leave? This is a public forum.
Yes.
How was I off topic?
I'll clear the room.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome back.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody remembered that I didn't attack anybody. I didn't call you guys any names. The only thing that I said was maybe if I was wearing a suit, what my words would be more powerful. Obviously, maybe a collar. That would work too. But I'm 27. I've lived here for 11 years. I live on Summit Boulevard. I'm the daughter of a disabled vet that moved here, retired here. The mother of a special needs child, an employee, and a volunteer. I feel that I was disrespected and my rights were attacked at the committee meeting on Monday. My voice is not the loudest, but I speak from my heart and I back it with facts. I feel that I was totally on topic because I waited until the ESP loan proposal. I waited until after you had your discussions, and then you opened it up for public. And I actually was the second one in line. But I also wrote that on my card, too, that I wanted to talk about this, but that was ignored. I just wanted to make sure that people were aware that the bankers had us focused on the interest rate, but didn't give a term. And on a $5 million loan, if it was like even just a 10-year loan, the bank would make over $545,000 just in 10 years, just on the interest, on that 2.09% interest. It's $545,000, and then they were still wanting to tack on an extra almost $39,000, and that's part of the problem that we're having. That's why Occupy Wall Street and this movement is so important. Hancock Bank, in particular, the bank is a for-profit company. They also recently acquired Whitney Bank in a $1.5 billion deal, and Whitney Bank was one of the banks that was bailed out. They received over $300 million in 2008. Yeah, I guess you guys already voted, so that's fine. But our movement is still strong, with or without our tents. We would really like them back because we were much more productive and effective that way. But I just wanted to give you a part of the statement from Occupy DC on why we occupy. Part of it is financial institutions gambled with our savings, homes, and economy. They collapsed the financial system and needed the public to bail them out of their failures, yet deny any responsibility and continue to fight oversight. Corporations loot from those whose labor creates society's prosperity, while the government allows them to privatize profits and socialize risk. Corporate interests threaten life on Earth by extracting and burning fossil fuels and resisting the necessary transition to renewable energy. Their drilling, mining, clear-cutting, overfishing, and factory farming destroys the land, jeopardizes our food and water, poisons the soil with near impunity. They privilege polluters over people by subsidizing fossil fuels, blocking investments in clean energy and efficient transportation, and hiding environmental destruction from public oversight. Private corporations, with the government's support, use common resources and infrastructure for short-term personal profit while stifling efforts to invest in public good. Government authorities cultivate a culture of fear to invade our privacy, limit assembly, restrict speech, and deny due process. They have failed in their duty to protect our rights. Exacerbated by profiteering interests, the criminal justice system has unfairly targeted underprivileged communities and outspoken groups for prosecution rather than protection. Leaders are trading our access to basic needs in exchange for handouts to the ultra-wealthy. Our rights to health care, education, food, water, and housing are sacrificed to profit-driven market forces. They are attacking unemployment insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, creating an uncertain future for us all.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Vanderwall. And Mr. Landon Godwin.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. If we could, from now on, if we could, please remind our speakers if they would give us their address for the record. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, all. I don't really know how to follow that. My name is Landon Brooks. I choose not to give my address. There's a lot of talk about pushing Pensacola forward tonight and improving it. Well, behind that building, there's a park being built. It's a multi-million-dollar investment where a very large homeless community lived for years. There's a lot of money going into sidewalks and development around that area. Well, I'm not going to get into the big controversy about Maritime Park. That's a dead horse. It's happening. But it almost seems like with the money that was invested to build a baseball stadium and a couple $1 million for some sidewalks, that those people could have been put in adequate housing, or we could have invested for shelters, or to investigate our water, to investigate the Superfund sites, to put sidewalks and lights into the majority of Pensacola's neighborhoods. We're a very poor city. We have literal shanty towns in our city. I don't know if you're aware of that. There's shanty towns. I have lived in neighborhoods where they're next to me. I mean, if we're going to invest money in our community, we need to understand that invest money in eliminating poverty, homelessness. The value and beauty of your city is not attributed to how much capital comes in and out of your city. or how many pretty neighborhoods we have for a small minority to enjoy. The value of a city is the quality of life of the people who inhabit that city. And we talk about, this transitional government we kind of have right now. Well, from my understanding, the last government wasn't even working right. It wasn't. How are we going to make this one work if we are not even assessing the problems we had in our community under the old government? It seems like there's more bureaucracy functioning in this building than there is actual progress for our city. And when you talk about the Occupy movement, whatever, I'm not religious at all. I'm not a Christian. I'm not Buddhist. I'm not any religion. But there's a lot of Christian language floating around this time of year with everyone. It's a very religious time of year. I understand that. Everyone throws around their faith. A lot of it's just, a bandwagon. A lot of people are very sincere. But if you want people to have a Merry Christmas and you actually say Happy Holidays, well, give people tents to sleep in as a Christmas present, because this new ordinance, you're not going to stop people from trying to stay warm. That's basic human instinct. The law does not compare to human instinct. If you're cold, you're going to get warm. If that means purposely getting arrested to go to jail, you're going to do that. If you have to eat, you're going to walk into a store and steal it. If you're literally starving to death, you're going to do it. So the only thing that's going to happen if you pass this ordinance is that some people are going to profit off of it. That's a given. It's the way it works. And some people are going to go to jail. A lot of things happen in jail. There was a guy in jail in 2010. I think his name was Mark Duggan. He was in jail for missing court. He ended up being put into a cell with a convicted murderer who was notorious for attacking inmates. The inmate pretty much beat him to death because he missed court. He was put in jail. That's a problem. You want to talk about a local grievance? My mom was in the hospital for 13 days. She literally almost died over the weekend. She just got laid off by Cintas. It's a national security corporation. My stepfather's a sheriff. He doesn't make crap. What's my mom going to do? She spent 13 days in a hospital. Adequate health care, education, proper cities for working class people to live in, investing in eliminating poverty. These are things we should do, not
Thank you,
baseball
sir.
stadiums. Thank you.
Thank you.